So the primary tool we used for 1P13 was Microsoft Teams, where it was essentially replaced the classroom. And so students were enrolled in a Microsoft team, and within the general channel, they would meet weekly with an instructor to go over a particular lesson plan. And we also enrolled them in private channels, and these private channels served as a virtual table in a classroom, for lack of a better term. And that table was actually also a repository where students could meet weekly, can keep their files online, and could meet with faculty and TAs to get the necessary support. Um, and so that served as a very nicely structured framework that we could use for a class of 1,000 students, which amounted to a dozen teams and hundreds of these private channels. We used one team for lectures and a kind of a gathering point, and really that team was set up. That's where all lectures were scheduled, and we treated it like the classroom. So we didn't store learning content on there. The learning content was remained on Avenue to Learn, which is what we had used for several years now. We really did leverage that team as the classroom, and that's where students joined for their for classes and whatnot. But for other modules of the course, specifically weekly design studios and weekly labs, we created a team for each of these lab sections. And so a lab or a design studio is basically a segment of the course or a cohort of 80 students. And so we put these 80 students in a dedicated team. And within the dedicated team, we had a couple of public channels. So these are channels that everybody is visible to everyone and everyone has access to them. And so that's where we would have an instructional assistant, run a little mini lesson at the start of a lab or design studio. And then students would go to these private channels. And so each channel is basically is accessed by 4 students who are on a project team, and then a faculty mentor, a couple of TAs, and some instructional staff. And so the idea is that these private channels actually belong to the students. And so rather than a breakout room, which you create on an as needed basis, and you create them, you send students to them, they go away, these private channels essentially belong to the students for as long as the team is active. So the students can they run meetings on there. It would be very typical on a Monday morning at 10:30 for the left side of this dashboard to be lit up with little video camera icons, because all of the students are in meetings. So they would run their meetings in this channel. They would put their files in their private channel, and they could notify instructors and TAs to ask any questions. We had a lot of support staff. One thing that we wanted to foster is an environment where students could connect with each other. And so to do that, we wanted to make sure that the support structures were in place. And so we had within any particular private channel, students had access to a TA, and that TA was only slotted into a couple of private channels, so they had a lot of dedicated face time, so to speak. But also instructional staff and faculty mentors, depending on the scope and the complexity of their questions. So the general channel served as that public meeting space. These private channels, which were named after the project team names, served as the design tables, right? The actual physical tables in the classroom. At the bottom there, we created a TA channel. The TA channel, you could almost think of it as the center of the room where the TAs can congregate. And so it would be common for the TAs to be running a meeting during that time where they could just bat some common questions that they're seeing and whatnot, run things by each other, very much similar to what would happen in the classroom.